Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
Karm, what episode do you think we're in right now?
You make up numbers. They go up and down like
62, believe it or not. 62 episodes. I don't think I've ever been so consistent in my life, but on to me.
That's because you are with me, and I am.
Yeah, sure. So ever since my therapy session last week with the therapist to the stars, Barry Michaels, I've been feeling very OCD-ish, anxious, and I'm trying to work through that, and I think I will. You concerned at all?
I was so pleased. I can't wait you see, we don't have it yet. I can't wait for you to see the actual, because you don't remember the whole conversation.
No.
I
also don't watch myself 30 seconds after I'm on like you do. You watch everything.
I just am adjusting yet.
I just told you before, as we were starting, put the mic where you need the mic when we start, and then don't move it. That's grating to the people listening, more so than your voice.
I don't believe that.
Do not move that again. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Anyway, I think that this guy is doing it like probably for over 20 years, the therapist to the stars. And Joel kind of set himself up, walked into it. He wanted it. He wanted the session to be about him.
Listen, speaking of that, I want to get the audience's feedback, and feel free to email us at survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. But do you want to hear Karm's words of wisdom? I am in the process of writing a book with Karm's help about life's big issues. For example, death.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Karm, we got in the car today, and you just started talking about death out of nowhere. Is this something that's on your mind?
My friend just got a very bad news, but my very good friend got the bad news, okay? And I was retelling you what happened.
I think that begs for us to bring back our beloved segment called This Week in Dead and Dying. All your people at the Miami Beach condo that are dying. Listen.
You do this all the time. Please be around for a while longer so that we can have the podcast.
If you guys have not heard of Tuesdays with Morrie, which was a bestseller in the early 90s, it was a guy who went back to Brandeis University, Mitch Albom, a famous sports writer, and he went over important topics in life with a professor that was dying. Carmela is very much living, but I'd like to do a similar thing with Carmela. Is it something that you, our global audience, would be interested in? Things like the importance of children, the importance of, what else is important?
Well, today we will have somebody who says
money, things of this nature, psychedelics. But let me know if you want to hear from Karm in book form.
By the way, he already announced it 6 months ago that he's doing it, and he's going to interview me. And every time he has something more important to do than to do that.
Karm, how many jobs do I work? And this is a full-time job.
No excuses.
On to the next. So
the guy last week, I'm really looking forward to. Usually it happens on Thursdays, which is tomorrow, from last Wednesday.
Last night.
And I can't wait for that guy to really put us in our place.
She's talking about the therapist to the stars, Barry Michaels, is coming out live right now. But Karm, we really are all over the place today. I feel like I need Adderall to focus. Anyway, long story short, coming up after the break, I called Karm last night. I'm like, don't forget, we're doing the podcast an hour earlier than normal. She screams at me that she's got to feed my dad lunch like he's a gorilla in the zoo. And she fails to give me any sort of credit for the fact that I've got a 2-time, not a 1-time, but a 2-time Stanley Cup winner on right now, coming up, who is business partners with the one and the only Iron Mike Tyson in a psychedelics company. You're going to hear from the great Dan Carcillo coming up next. He's got the greatest nickname in all of sports. right back with the main schmooze.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Karm, you asked me an interesting question on the ride over. You said, Joel, are there any Jewish hockey players? Probably not. Not that I'm aware of.
I said to Joel, this is a question don't bring up. This question is between you and me. And this is what I get for it.
Let me ask you a question.
Right in. Yeah.
Prior to interviewing Dan Carcillo, which we're about to do, had you ever heard the term Stanley Cup? Do you know what it is?
Yes,
Other than a cup.
I heard it.
What is it?
I now I know it's for hockey.
And what
but
is
before I didn't. Now, you see, this is completely out of my ballpark, except I have a master's in social work. So what's happening now with you is kind of in my ballpark.
Dan's like, oh.
A little bit, the emotional stuff.
Dan's like, I skated in 2 Stanley Cups and I beat people up and now I got to deal with this shit. He's like, it never ends. Dan, thank you for joining us. Thanks for coming on.
But it prepared.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Karm, if you look over Dan's right shoulder, that is a replica Stanley Cup. There's 2 of them over his other shoulder.
It's not a replica. Those are real.
That's what it looks like. The real ones are huge. So let me tell the audience, for those living under a rock, Daniel Carcillo, without question, has the greatest nickname of any pro athlete ever, and don't at me. You know what his nickname was, Karm?
Yes, I did. Car bomb.
Car Bomb. He was simply known as Car Bomb. There is no better nickname. He was called that during his 10-year NHL career for his explosive play. He's an enforcer in the league, known for protecting his teammates. Dan helped Chicago win 2, not 1, but 2 Stanley Cup championships with the Blackhawks. But his on-ice success came at a great personal cost. He suffered 7 concussions, was eventually diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome and TBI, or traumatic brain injury. Karm, TBI is also the stuff that like soldiers in Afghanistan get when, artillery goes off. This is serious stuff. His sensitivity to light was so severe, he couldn't even look at his cell phone. I can sort of relate to this next one, except my daughter's not my son.
He always can relate. He wants to
He wanted nothing to do with his infant son, although my son I can hang out with all day. My daughters are questionable. He then found psychedelics, giving the lifelong athlete a much shinier outlook on life than any Stanley Cup ever could. Today, Daniel Carcillo is walking around with a smile. He is co-founder and CEO of Wesana Health, which we're going to get into in depth in a moment. Daniel, how are you?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thank you. So my last question to you, for full disclosure, I interviewed both Daniel and Mike Tyson at Wonderland, which was a psychedelics conference in Miami. Daniel and Mike Tyson are not easy guys to get to interview. It's taken me a while, but I was a persistent, tenacious journalist, Karm. You'd be happy to know, and I finally got Dan here. But Dan,
you nagged him to death. That's my technique too. Nag until.
I like to throw people off. So my last question to Dan, which he was a little stunned by, and I'm going to start. Daniel was, who would win a fight, you or Mike Tyson? And you actually paused, which I love. And you said that you might be able to beat his ass on ice. Is this true?
Yeah, on ice, for sure. I would win. On, terra firma, on land, he would crush me, for sure.
You know what was interesting? Can I say an interesting association I had?
100%.
Like I listened to some of the stuff to prepare myself for today, and you said that more or less when you were born, they put you right on ice. You virtually didn't have to walk on solid ground. And we had Olympic ice skaters.
We had an Olympic figure skater on who started skating when she was 2. How old were you?
And we heard from her the first time that she feels more solid on ice and better balanced on ice than on firm, because she practices 10 hours, 12 hours a day. Do you feel that like ice for you is like walking on land?
Yeah, we basically, as soon as you can walk in Canada, your parents put you in skates. So, you're usually skating around anywhere between like 2.5 years old to 4. If you start getting older than 4 and you're not skating already, you're going to have some serious, developmental issues because everyone's already
Canadian developmental issues.
So,
Canadian.
Dan, when did you know that you wanted to be a hockey player? Speaking of 2 to 4 years old, my boy's turning 3, and I'm getting worried here. But when did you really get into it, knowing that it could be a career for you?
Yeah, so I think I knew I wanted to be a hockey player the first time I was told like I can hit somebody if they were touching the puck. And then I think it was when I was 15, I made a decision. I grew up in a small farming community in King City, Ontario. And I realized that this could be a tool to take me out of the community and to be successful at something. So I made a decision at 15, moved away 3 hours from home, and started, playing against 21-year-old, men, and eventually just applied myself fully to trying to go pro.
But every little kid, every little boy, maybe girls too, in Canada wants to be a professional ice hockey player. What was the difference? Like, was it your discipline? Were you a phenomenal skater? Were you a hard hitter? What was it that allowed you to separate from the what is it, the cream from the chaff, or whatever the expression is? What was the difference?
The wheat from the
whatever,
chaff.
I don't know what it is. Something like that.
My work ethic, that's always been there. I grew up in an Italian household and very strict. And, I learned from watching my dad and my mom, but just how they showed love through work ethic, a lot of attention to detail, which you need in hockey. And I think I was just emotionally attached to the game. Like, I didn't really like watching it. I didn't study it. I put my skates on and I played from a state of pure emotion. And I believe that's why it carried me, to through a 12-year professional career, and really opened the door to why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So even though there was a lot of suffering along the way, really grateful for it, grateful for that journey, and just the person that I am today, for sure.
Now,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karm.
No,
We like to interrupt each other on the show.
Yeah, we always. But
Karm, there's a show called Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, but go on.
no, but I had a sign on my desk: "Don't talk while I'm interrupting."
Go ahead.
Now, and that's another thing. When I want to say something, he interrupts.
Look, Dan
and
just
then
said he comes from a very strict Italian upbringing. He's not going to be able to handle this. This is gonna be the straw that breaks the camel's
but
back.
I forgot what I wanted to say now.
And that's why I'm going to jump in. So, Dan, I've met you. You're just a very sweet, unassuming guy, and yet you're this vicious enforcer on ice. I went back and watched some of your fights. Where did that part of Daniel Carcillo come from? Was that like pent up aggression?
No, I think it's from trauma. I was bullied as a kid. My first year in the OHL wasn't easy. There was that was really the tipping point when I moved away at 15. We had 13 rookies, and there was just a ton of hazing in that cultural aspect. It's very cult-like hockey, where you can lock the door, and for whatever reason, guys want to lean on you and break you, and then try to build you back up. That was the old way, and so that really, where I look back to my career, I was a 30-goal scorer my whole OHL career. I fought 4 times, but that year really kind of broke me, and just I had this a ton of pent-up aggression, and I was doing things off the ice that weren't normal, and I was doing things on the ice that were somewhat out of character as well. But when I realized that I had a skill set for, listen, man, I grew up in a farm town, right? So you're always fighting in some way, shape, or form, whether it's on the ice or not. And I remember, when I turned pro, I knocked out this guy, Kevin Colley, who's pretty tough, in my first fight. And everybody, I've been in that organization for a while, and they were like, well, where did that come from? And then you kind of get pinholed into a role. But I could always play, which was different. And I stand up for myself and others. And I think that stems from, being leaned on by certain people at certain times in my life, and I won't take it. And so, I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. Like that dog is still in me. If you try to cross me, I can't hit you now in the real world, but I will find a way to get you back.
That comes in handy in business, I mean, and also the work ethic. But Karm, did you remember your question?
Yes, I did. It sounded like an ass-kissing question, but I had to tell you that we now have 62 episodes of our podcast.
Karm, by the way, try not to cross Daniel, because he'll come and get you, but go on.
62, the opposite. We have 62 episodes, and he's been talking to me about you and trying to get you, and it's like almost like I think he admires you so much, and he wants to be so much interviewing you. It's because, speaking of don't talk about Jewish, he's a nice Jewish boy whose mother wouldn't let him do this because, I lost another son, and I was always afraid, like of football, let's say, or any other of those contact sports. And now he's boxing, okay? And I'm thinking he's gonna get hurt, and it will cost him a lot of money to have his teeth.
Karm, is there a question in this?
No, this is only a compliment of how much he was looking forward to.
Well, I've been a gigantic fight fan my whole life, and I found a former UFC fighter. Shout out to Josh Dempsey, who's the grandson of the great boxer Jack Dempsey, and he is training me in boxing. But Daniel, unlike you, I've never been in a fight in my life, and if someone swung at me, I'd probably cry and wouldn't know what to do, but I would run behind you.
Yeah, you'll. I mean, when you're tested, right, and if you continually get tested, I've got 3 young kids under the age of 7, 7, 4, and 3, and I want them to fail. I want them to get tested. I don't want, like, when they fall, I don't run to pick them up. I let them get up on their own, so, and it's not mean. It's just, I don't like to baby employees or babies. Yeah, I just, if you fall, you can always pick yourself up, right? So I learned that from a very young age. And I think it's a skill in parenting if you can be careful. Like, listen, obviously it goes without saying, you would die for your kids. And I would lay down my life in a heartbeat for any of them. And so, but in saying that, I'm not helping them if I baby them. And so,
I have to tell you one more interesting thing. Last week, we had a psychiatrist, here. And he said exactly what you said. Exactly what you said. It's it's not the official dogma of the psychologists today. They baby you and
Yeah, the only difference is
he's a big baby in that sense that he accuses me of not babying him now.
we're talking about my kids, Karm. I don't baby my kids, to be honest. As a matter of fact, point in case, Daniel and Carmela, this past weekend, I don't know if you spend time in Florida, because I think you do, Daniel, but you got to go.
Yeah, I live here now.
Oh, nice. You got to go to Formula One next year. But
yeah, I saw that. It looked really interesting. I've been down there for conferences and stuff, and it's a zoo, so I couldn't imagine that. So I ducked out of that.
Yeah, Formula One was incredible. But anyway, just the speed. These car drivers are going. The drivers are going 300 miles an hour. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is I actually got a ticket and I took my 3-year-old boy, which is kind of a dream. We got there. We had to park like 2 miles from the stadium just to get to the race, and I made this kid walk the whole way, man. And I was like, I'm toughening this little bastard up. And it was like a 3-mile walk. And then, of course, we get to our seats finally, and the way back, I had to carry him on my shoulders the entire way, and I almost died. But anyway, I digress. So, Daniel, let's get into this. So you win 2 Stanley Cups. Career comes to an end, and you're going through, people glamorize sports. They're like, wow, 2-time Stanley Cup winner, but your life was not all roses and rainbows, correct? What was going on towards the tail end of the career when you were retiring?
Yeah, so I was dealing with a lot of symptoms that seemed to progressively get worse over the last 2 or 3 years of my career. I started to seek out, like going to neurologists and trying to diagnose what was happening, but couldn't seem to get a handle on it. And it really culminated my last year in the sport in 2015. I was 30. I started the year, it was 2014. My son was born in November. So like my dad, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like I love him and he taught me all my like work ethic, hard work, etc. And I try to be really diligent with how hard I'm working now to make sure that I spend time with my kids every day and that I don't neglect them no matter how hard I work. And so not to say that he neglected us, but he chose. And back in the day, it was easy to choose work over sporting events, right? So just try to be conscious of that. And, I got to a point where in my career, I could kind of see the writing on the wall, especially after I had my kid, because I didn't want to travel 184 days of the year. So one foot was out the door, and then Steve Monador, my best friend, passed away in February, and he had 19 concussions that were diagnosed in the NHL. And I could see some of my symptoms reflected in him. And so that scared me because it was later revealed that he had stage 3 or a progressive stage of CTE, which is a neurodegenerative disease. And he was only 34. I was like, whoa, I really have to like look seriously at what's happening. And
did he die from that? Or
yes, he didn't wake up, right?
Yeah, they're still going to court. But yeah, I mean, listen, when you have stage 3 CTE at 34, it's essentially they're tau proteins. So it's a different entanglement than Alzheimer's or dementia, but it starts strangling neurons. It starts affecting the way your brain communicates. It starts affecting your autonomic system. And at 34 years old, I mean, absolutely that contributed to his death. Right. So, and then in March, I had my 7th concussion and I couldn't look at my phone for 3 weeks. I was prescribed opiates again. I was told not to come to the rink until my symptoms were gone, which is essentially the script that these doctors give you in the NHL. And I just thought to myself, I just don't want to do this anymore, and I made a decision to stay with the team through the run and practice and that sort of thing, because it's the only thing I knew what to do and how to be supportive. And then at the end of the year, I retired, and then the symptomology started to really kick in to the point where I was one of 25 people that won a Stanley Cup. I was on the best hockey team in the world, and I didn't go to the banner raising. I didn't go to the concerts. I didn't go party. I didn't I didn't partake in any of that. So my depression started to really take over, and I started isolating. And that's when the real journey started. You know, the hardest fight of my life was from that moment on until, you know, luckily I found something that worked 5.5 years later.
Wow. When you didn't go to the banner raising and all those things, did your teammates come to you and say, Daniel, what's going on? How come you're not coming to this? And what was your response then?
Yeah, they messaged me for sure. And I just said, I don't really remember what I said. I probably snuffed it off. I didn't tell them that I was suffering. One of the things that, like, in hockey, right, in a dressing room, if you're ever a distraction, then you get traded within like a week. So these guys were still playing, right, the next year. So I felt like if I told them that I'd be like somewhat of a distraction, even though I know some of the guys really cared. But that's just ingrained into our mentality, right? Just the same way work ethic and sacrificing yourself for the team and attention to detail and like basically walking on potato chips to make sure you don't do anything wrong because you could be gone the next day, and showing up every shift. People think it's like, oh, you have one bad game. Well, it's not really that. It's one or two bad shifts. And then they start thinking about trading you and replacing you. So it's great for what, and I try to tell like our employees now, it's not that we're going to, you know, think of removing you, but this is the life that I grew up in, and imagine if you were subjected to that type of pressure, right? So you just got to be diligent in communication. The only time that I got upset was when I wasn't told the truth. Like, if I'm not performing, come and tell me, and then I'll do everything in my power to try to change it. Don't just make decisions behind my back and not tell me to fix something and then get rid of me. But that's the world of professional sports.
Could you tell the people who watch our podcast? I know you went to great length to get help, and you tried a lot of different things before that 5.5 years later when you had that experience with the mushroom. All the different things you tried, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I went to the best neurologists in the world. I went to Hold Brains that had CTE to try to understand what neurodegenerative disease was, like how I could possibly fix it. I read every single PubMed paper I could on neurodegenerative disease and brain pathology and concussion pathology to figure out what had happened to me and again, what could work. Then I started to use advanced diagnostics and going to these people that, you know, basically take subjective and objective tests of your brain, meaning they do memory tests. They understand where symptoms are because slurred speech lives in a very specific part of the brain. Then they do a QEEG, which measures the electrical waves of the 6 different areas of our brain, because a concussion isn't on the whole brain. It's on one of these 6 areas that then affects communication with the other 5 areas. So if you can pinpoint and use all of this information to basically understand where you're suffering, then you could possibly target it, right? I've taken ocular testing, vestibular testing, which is earlobe fluid. I've done autonomic testing. I've done hormone testing. I've done blood testing. I've done genetic testing. I've done holistic tools like float tanks, hyperbaric chamber, Moxa acupuncture, cranial sacral. I've done pretty much, red light therapy. I've done, everything that you could possibly imagine and I had a lot of means to do this. I had money. So all of the cutting edge therapies, and I got to a point 5 years in, everything that I've described, most things are not covered by insurance. So you're paying cash, and I just got to a point where I'm like, all right, well, I've tried everything numerous times. I've tried diet, I've tried different sleep regimens, and nothing worked, right? I was sitting at a point where I was suicidal. So you get to a point with TBI, and I say it like drinking a glass of milk, where the number one cause of death is suicide. And there's no FDA-approved pharmaceutical. And so I started to make plans to unburden my family. I didn't want my kids to see me, living that way and thinking, oh, okay, so that's the way that we should model my life around, right? And luckily, in that 3 to 4 week time frame where I was planning it, I got an invite to a farm, and it saved my life. And then, like I did before, I was always advocating, like, hey, this didn't work for me, but it could possibly work for you. This worked for me. I think it could work for you, right? So always talking about these different treatments that you could try, because that provides hope, and for TBI survivors, that's the most crucial thing. Like, you got to or any survivor, you have to keep going. You have to keep researching, and something will work.
So in your mind, though, nothing was working. You're planning your own demise so your kids don't have to suffer. And then you said you get this invite. What happens? Did you say at a farm?
Yeah. So I went to a farm that was doing CBD, hemp for CBD plants, and learn about like functional mushrooms, lion's mane, reishi. Just really spend a couple weeks away. And just something that I hadn't tried, right? I hadn't really tried a medicine regimen. And so that was and a natural medicine regimen. I tried pharmaceuticals. I had seizures from it. I tried everything that I could on that side, exasperated head pressure, headaches. It was a nightmare. So this was kind of the last effort, and I got surprised with a high dose of psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. And I don't even like leading off with that, because like for the podcast purposes, it puts people on their heels. But essentially, I tried a molecule that I'd researched that wakes up right and left brain hemispheres and creates neuronal crosstalk, helps with neuroinflammation, and is a really potent antioxidant. So I thought, hey, one of the side effects, you can call it a side effect, a good one or a bad one, is hallucinating and being shown what you need to see to move past your trauma. And so it was a really responsible, well set up ceremony. And it happens to be, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms that saved my life.
So you go to the farm, you take psilocybin, and you're basically hallucinating. What was that experience? And this is coming from a guy that's super disciplined athlete, right? You're always in control of your body, being careful about what you put in. Professional athletes, their bodies are their temples. So what were you anytime I hear the word mushroom or psychedelics, my reflex is anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose control. I'm not going to be in control of myself. I mean, I have friends that have tripped out on everything. Karm, you ever taken acid, Karm, in the 60s?
No, but going back into the 60s, like Timothy Leary and all those, they were always considered, what I'm talking about, the 60s.
Well, there's a lot of acid going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I would put the question back to you. And yes, like, we're not used to, as individuals, we think we're the be all and end all and that we control everything. So I would put the question back to you, similar to like what Alan Watts asks people when they ask that question. Do you do breathing?
Yeah, interesting.
Do you think about your blood coursing through your veins? Is that what you do?
Not often.
Or does that just happen?
It just happens. It's probably mentally tougher than me. What do you think, Karm?
Well, no, there's certain things, right?
You just start playing games. Yeah. He's playing the
no.
The vulnerable one, because I play the tough one. He plays the vulnerable one, but I'm not tough and he's not vulnerable. Trust me.
No, but it's a scary first thing. But you went ahead and you did it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't posed to me like, you're going to give up control, you're going to surrender to that. Wasn't it? It was this medicine will show you why you're suffering. right? It'll show you why you're suicidal. And I had an inkling, right? But I wanted to see it. And I was at a point in my life where I was a shell of myself. You know, if you go look at a picture that I usually post on Instagram, it's I was like 160 pounds. You couldn't recognize my face, and I was ready to surrender, right? Because I tried everything else. So take me. You know, I wasn't used to hallucinating by any means. I didn't. So, but I was ready to give up control to essentially get it back, right? So. And I did that because I trusted the person who invited me there. And then I trusted the PhD biochemist, and, you know, they prepared me. But essentially what this medicine does from a spiritual standpoint is shows you what's wrong, right? So instead of somebody pulling me, you know, out of the river at the bottom of the river, they're going to the top and talking to me before I jump in. And so, you know, and then ever since that ceremony, it was a really difficult 2 hours. I was lost in a loop, which I was lost in my life. I didn't have a new purpose. I didn't, you know, since retirement, I was lost in this patient journey that I wasn't getting better from, and that I was spending all my money and time on. I wasn't enjoying my kids or my family. And then, you know, as I fought that and these images, these two people helped guide me into a place where I could like breathe deeply and understand that, you know, you get this overwhelming feeling when you do high doses of psilocybin that eventually something flips and everything's going to be okay. And you get this feeling of unconditional happiness or love, and that you are worth it, right? And that came through at about like 2 hours. Where like my former teammate came to me in the representation of a godlike figure, and he's like, this is why we wanted you here. We wanted to help you. We want you on the team. And I said, you know, there's this mycelium network. I said, I'll never forget it. Me, why me? I'm such a loser. That was my mentality at that point, right? And I was just so beaten up and done. And they just both said, no, you're not. We want you on this team. And then I was like, ooh, you know, I'm actually wanted again, you know, for the first time in 5 years. And I just, the rest of the ceremony was bliss for 2 hours. Really amazing imagery and feelings. And I woke up the next day, I describe it as feeling the way I should, you know, and I was on that farm for 2 weeks. My symptoms started to fall away. So the next day, all I wanted to do was call my wife. So right away, depression was lifted. I didn't want to isolate. Slurred speech left within 2 or 3 days. No more light sensitivity on the 4th day on the farm. So like all of my symptoms started to lessen in intensity or all but fade away in 2 weeks. And then I just understood that nothing gets fixed in 5 hours. So we made, you know, a microdose. So a subperceptual dose, you don't hallucinate on a daily basis, in combination with CBD, which is a neuroprotectant. And I took that for 6 months, and I retested my brain and my blood, and it was completely clear, no abnormalities.
Wow.
So yeah, that's been the large overview of the journey.
Question for you. So at first, it sounds like you're having almost like an outer body experience, like you're seeing yourself from outside. Like
no, you saw all the suffering, right? You saw all the suffering.
Yeah, all the suffering. There was like dry heaving, right? There's a reason you fast. So there's certain things that you do because you can like purge this type of energy. And you just have to understand the mindset that I was in, right? Like I was planning to take my own life. So I was everybody around me knew that this was going to be a difficult ceremony. It wasn't going to be easy.
I guess my question is, when you present it, like initially, it sounds like you're working yourself out almost from a psychological standpoint, like you're having this conversation with a former teammate. But the psilocybin physically and biochemically is altering your brain simultaneously, correct? Like, so there's an actual physical healing, correct?
Yeah. So what it does is it shuts down the default mode network of the brain. And then it allows other hemispheres of the brain that never have communicated before to communicate. So essentially stimulating these brain regions. What do you think I heard at the neurologist clinics? We're going to figure out what part of your brain is shut down due to trauma, and then we're going to stimulate them to get them back talking again. Well, here was $3 worth of mushrooms that did that for me. It wasn't $10,000 that I had to spend in that clinic.
Now the maintenance dosage, is it like micro amounts or they're
non-hallucinogenic? Yep. So like I'm on it right now, and you can't tell.
No, you can't. But
Carmel, I need to put you on this, like right away. But so Dan,
we are going on it, the two of us.
I need to be on it.
Yeah. So like, I mean, essentially nothing gets fixed in 5 hours. Nothing. There's no magic bullet for anything, right? And I know that. So like, you have to continue to. I have a theory, and I'm not a doctor, and this isn't medical advice. And I'm not telling anybody to go and do psilocybin. Let's just get that out of the way. But if I can continue to agonize this 5-HT2A receptor, which is essentially serotonin, it helps modulate the nervous system and it flushes out neuroinflammation, and it's amazing. I'll keep doing that on a daily basis. I can't hallucinate on a daily basis, and I've now been on this for 3 years, and what seems to keep happening is, like, if I do go have a few drinks, I can't really get drunk. It seems to protect against any type of neurodegenerative that you put in. I look like I'm 20 years old. I feel like I'm 20. I don't have any pain in my knees, my hips, my neck. I have arthritis everywhere. I have tears everywhere. So it's a really amazing medicine, and I'll continue to use it as long as my blood work continues to come back clear, and my brain, which it does. I test it every 6 months.
Now, Daniel, I know you're not a physician. Karm, go ahead.
But you also mentioned on one of those things I listened about you, that you'd have to take a break so that because it's an organic, natural substance, your body may adjust to it and not react to it. So you have to take breaks to kind of...
Every weekend. Yeah, every weekend I take a break. I mean, everybody should. I don't drink coffee on the weekends either, and I drink coffee during the week. If you don't take a break, what happens? 1 cup works on Monday, and then you got 2 cups on Tuesday, and 3 cups on Wednesday, and 4 cups on Thursday, and it's with anything, right? Any type of medicine or substance, I truly believe you need at least a day, 2 days to help your body reset, and then you go back. Or else you're going to get into these dangerous levels. If anyone's on antidepressants or SSRIs, nothing wrong with them, except that you start to elevate these doses, which have crippling side effects. So if you could take a break, it's advantageous to be able to do that.
Now, Daniel, let me ask you a question about me. So my whole life, coming from being the son of a psychiatrist and the son of another therapist and a Holocaust survivor, that comes with its own rewards, like being the son of a farmer or coming from a farm community. Is it something, I live with levels of anxiety, OCD, things like that. I know you're not a physician, but do you recommend this for other people, or just people who are suffering from kind of CTE? And
you know what I recommend?
Yeah,
I recommend everybody who's listening to this to go and do your own research. So I recommend you go look at Johns Hopkins University and all of the studies there that have taken away end-of-life anxiety in patients using psilocybin. I recommend you look at it from an alcohol disorder usage standpoint. There's a bunch of different studies that have been well validated in a clinic. And then I recommend you go look at NYU, Imperial College of London, and then make your own decision.
Have mushrooms been shown to help like alcoholism?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. Go to Johns Hopkins University and the publications that they have. All of these psychedelics back in the 40s to 60s were shown to have a massive amount of efficacy in a large number of disorders. So I just encourage people to go do the research.
So you're obviously a very bright guy, very diligent, detail oriented. So you go through this whole thing, and then when do you decide, hey, I'm going to found my own company called Wesana Health, and I'm going to try to bring this to the public. When does that happen, and where are you guys with the company right now in terms of bringing it to the masses?
Yeah, so 6 months in, I got that clear scan, brain scan, no abnormalities, clear blood work. I waited a year, got another test. It looked even better than the first. And then that's when I started to, number one, like do outreach and use my platform to advocate for the knowledge of these substances. Because one thing I'm all about is helping people today as best as I can. And I believe helping is pointing people in the right direction. Again, don't listen to me. I'm not a physician, but go do your own research. And if you think that this can help, use your physician to ask questions, and then just, dig a little deeper, right? Understand who the physician gets paid by and these sorts of things, and take all of that information and make your own best educated decision on your own health. But it was a year after I realized for sure that this could be the first FDA-approved pharmaceutical for traumatic brain injury-related symptom. And I just started to outreach and, message people on LinkedIn and research, quite literally go on Google and how do you start a drug development company? And then once I knew that, then I started to outreach to people like MAPS and Rick Doblin and these different organizations, and they helped introduce me to people. And I vetted people and I told them what I had. I used my own personal money to file intellectual property around what I'd created with the milligram amounts and the days on, days off. And I protected that first and foremost, because if you want to make any meaningful headway in drug development, you have to have intellectual property so that you can essentially, people can't copy you. When you spend 100 to 200 million to develop a medicine, which is what it takes. And then I built my team. I know how to play on a team and I know my role. And I found drug developers that have done this 40 times with the FDA. And luckily, we raised enough money to get us, through to certain inflection points or hit certain milestones. The biggest being a pre-IND meeting with the FDA. So IND means investigational new drug application. So I basically took what we had, we put it into an FDA-validated model of depression. And the first step is to dose animals, okay? And then show efficacy in an FDA-validated model with what I've taken. So we did that, checked that box, and then created a briefing booklet and had this meeting on March 11th. And we basically told the FDA, this is what we're proposing to do. Tell us if you agree with this, and tell us if there's any more animal studies that we have to do with the two compounds that we're thinking of using, which are psilocybin and CBD. Now, I will tell everybody, psilocybin's been FDA or designated FDA breakthrough therapy designation for two different companies. So they already essentially have acknowledged that it's somewhat safe and efficacious for different indications, like major depressive disorder, right? And whether that comes from an emotional trauma or a physical trauma, that doesn't matter to the FDA. And that was very clear in their feedback to us. And then CBD is approved in Epidiolex. It's an approved medicine. CBD's, THC, CBD, these are cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant. And it's approved for childhood epilepsy and seizures. So we know it's safe. We give it to children, and it's an approved FDA pharmaceutical. So I combined those, and we brought it forward to the FDA, and they were very amendable. They accelerated our program, and we're well on our way to opening up an IND in Q4 of this year. So the IND is the first step to then taking the drug and putting it into human beings. And we're going to be, they accelerated our program. So usually you do a phase 1, which is healthy human beings. And they accelerated us to a 1B, 2A, So that means we don't have to put it in healthy human beings because they've acknowledged that psilocybin and CBD are extremely safe. And we're going to be able to dose human beings in Q1 of next year. So that's like a very high level of where the drug development stands in Wesana. And we're doing well. We're doing really well. So we're able to hopefully provide hope, as we communicate this to the public.
Yeah, so I met you at Wonderland, which is a psychedelics conference here in Miami. I mean, there's a lot of people, this area of medical advancement is going to blow up. There are a lot of people, I guess, in the same league, so to speak, as you, without giving us, obviously the elements of the secret sauce. What differentiates Wesana from some of these other psychedelics companies?
We have a self-administered at-home presentation of our drug. So if you go to every other company and look at them, they're all doing high doses in a clinic. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of disadvantages to that. The number one being there's not enough therapists in the world, and there never will be, to sit with millions of people to watch them hallucinate. So how many people are you really going to help of the 264 million people that suffer from depression worldwide, right? So the biggest differentiator of Wesana is that we have a clear pathway forward with the FDA from their feedback on the March 11th meeting that they're amendable to an at-home presentation of a microdose in combination with CBD that will live on somebody's counter that can be taken on a daily basis. I've seen hundreds, and I've read about hundreds of thousands of people that have gotten better with a microdose alone. And if you ask me what the most impactful part of my regimen has been, it's most definitely the chronic dosing or the constant dosing of the microdose, hands down. So that's our biggest difference, man. And we're going to be able to, with an at-home presentation, really take a big chunk and help a lot of people in that mild or major depressive disorder category.
Elon Musk, Carmela, our good friend Elon Musk, we did an episode with his author a couple weeks ago. He tweeted out in the last week or so, and here's a tweet: "I've talked to many more people who are helped by psychedelics and ketamine than SSRIs and amphetamines." And Wesana Health, Daniel responded to that saying, "We have a defined pathway forward to having a psilocybin CBD combo therapy live on someone's counter with no need to hallucinate to address major depressive disorder. My next question to you, Daniel, is how do I invest in this company?" Are you guys public?
We're public on the CSE. Yeah, OTCQB.
Karm, you better open up that wallet when you get home. I'm also going to shove some of this.
It looks like I have the wallet.
Karm, I'm going to put you on this. I'm going to get some doses.
I have to tell you, I don't know anything about this field. This is why I love to do this, because I learn so much more. But listen to this interesting little tidbit. There is a writer called Ayelet Waldman, and she lives in California. And she was diagnosed manic depressive, and she has, I think, 4 children. And she was seriously considering suicide, seriously. And she took microdosage of one of these psychedelics completely through serendipity. I don't even know how she got to that. But she took it, and it really worked in microdosage because she was not suicidal afterwards. So that's my only experience. That's the only.
And that's what Daniel's been saying. So Daniel, Iron Mike Tyson, love the dude. How do you get partnered with him? I mean, I know he's very vocal about quote unquote taking the toad, which is magic mushrooms. But so how did you connect with him, and how's that going?
Just to give you guys a heads up too, I've got in the next 5 minutes, I've got a
jump off?
I slotted an hour, yeah. So we're gonna have to either pick this up another time or
no. We are very grateful. I am very grateful in his name too.
Of course. So Mike, we just I sat in the office and tried to understand how we could get this to the most amount of people through the athletic platform, and he was already advocating for traumatic brain injury and psilocybin and toad and all of the psychedelics really to help him change his life. So we reached out to his team and got him on board.
Awesome. Hopefully you'll get him on my podcast too. Also, you're sponsoring some other athletes. I know Juliana Pena, the Venezuelan vixen from the UFC. She's on board now. So this is awesome. This is exciting. Where you're also working with the World Boxing Council. I'm very excited about this for you. Where do you see, and we're going to wrap it up here, when we have you back on in 5 years and then 10 years, where's the psychedelics industry going to be, and where's it going to be relative to the Prozacs of the world and the Xanaxes of the world?
I mean, there's a reason biotech is pretty much in a bear market. The road that we've gone down, going into labs and try to create chemicals from thin air just so that we could protect them for 20 years, is the wrong move. We see that with people that 30-40% of people are getting helped, but a large chunk of the majority are not. And there's no meaningful CNS drug being developed in the last decade, and we've gotten it wrong. We moved away from extracting from plants and fungi to this laboratory way, and it has consequences on people's lives and on biotech as a whole. So I believe this is going to be the new standard of care in the next 5 years. Absolutely, unequivocally, there's no way around it. And I believe that we're one of the companies that has a very clear, defined pathway forward to be able to get somebody medicine that has little to no abuse liability with little to no side effects. The only couple side effects being it's a potent anti-inflammatory and it protects your brain from aging and protects the whole system from degeneration. So I'm nothing short of this will be the new standard of care. Absolutely, for all mental health disorders.
This is a quote I read from Daniel on Wesana's website. It says, a lot of TBI patients want to become the person that we were before the injury, but I'm trying to show people that you can actually get better. This is why Daniel Carcillo is not only a badass on the ice, but a badass in life. Daniel, thank you so much. Karm, are you chomping at the bit for one last?
You forgot our tradition.
Oh. Daniel, this goes back about 10 weeks. Carmela insists I ask every guest how I can help them instead of how you can help me. So how can I help you, Daniel? And by the way, the first time I ever asked that question was to a Harvard astrophysicist, and he asked me for $100 million for a telescope. But how can we help?
But he wasn't joking. He said he needs a telescope because he believes he sees something in outer space that could be a message from another
Daniel, what can we do to spread the word?
Yeah, you've already done it. So I appreciate you having me on, and a conversation like this will hopefully, if we can help one person, we've done our job today.
Awesome. Love to have you back, man. You're an inspiration.
Thanks so much.
I'm so glad I pursued you.
You are.
And best of luck with everything. I am definitely getting Karm to invest in Wesana.
I'm going right from here to rob a bank.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Let's stay in touch. Thanks for having me, guys.
100%.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Right back with a new Schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news Schmooze.
Karm, what did you think of Dan?
I claim the fifth because doomed if I pretend that I already heard him because I didn't.
It was a trick question.
Everything before, or if I admit I didn't do it, he says, yes, you did. You just don't want to say.
We are recording out of sequence. We have not yet interviewed the great Dan Carcillo, so Karm can't honestly answer the question. On to the news Schmooze here, Karm. Our friend Elon Musk, our episode did very well, by the way. Was off to a slow start, did very well, is doing very well. We had the author of Tesla Power Play on. Elon Musk.
Bye, Tim
Higgins. Elon Musk is back in the news. He has claimed that he will cure a common and debilitating disease using computer chips hooked to people's brains. In a recent tweet, the billionaire said that his company, Neuralink, is going to fix tinnitus. Do you know what tinnitus is, Karm?
No.
It is a condition that causes ringing in the ears.
Oh, tinnitus. But you mispronounced it on purpose as tinnitus. So that
How
it
do you
wasn't
pronounce it? No,
with an I.
it's tinnitus.
Okay.
You know who had a very bad case of tinnitus and was, I don't want to say he was suicidal, but he was at the brink of not working anymore. Do you know who? The great Dana White, the president of the UFC. Horrendous tinnitus where he couldn't really travel or do anything. Well, anyway, Elon Musk says Neuralink is going to fix this by 2027. He has got the goal of creating brain-machine interfaces that connect humans and computers. Early trials have implanted coin-sized devices into the heads of monkeys that allows them to play video games using only their minds.
You know what I'm afraid of?
Yeah, what?
Like I see Musk as manic, cubed on cube.
Like
Exponentially. And I'm thinking, I hope he doesn't go into a phase of depression because he's so hyperactive. He's thinking and doing so many things.
Probably on Adderall. Well, let me ask you
What's
this.
Adderall? I honestly don't know.
It's like a drug that everyone takes today that keeps you awake and focused. Like all the kids take it in college.
Oh, the hyperactive kids.
but kids, they take it as like almost a recreational drug.
No, they take it to prepare for tests.
It's like Tinder. It's something I completely missed out on in life. But if you're in college now, like your niece's friends probably are all on Adderall.
Not my nieces.
Not your nieces, but
no.
I said your niece's friend, your granddaughter, my nieces. How many people do you think have tinnitus in the United States?
Tinnitus?
Yeah. How many people, if you had
I
to
don't
guess?
get impressed. I told you I get impressed.
If you had to guess, how many people do you think suffer from tinnitus in the United States?
May I say something? As long as they are not dying from it.
What's a number?
Don't know, a few million.
50 million people suffer from it.
And I know why.
Why? Because of their cell phones? That's what you're going to say.
No, I was going to because they go to rock concerts that are very loud. They have all these very loud.
Are you concerned that there's a human named Elon Musk that's going to be implanting brain chips? That's the bigger question. That's why I brought this all up. I guess you are. You just said that if he gets depressed.
1 second. They are already doing it with deaf people. They are doing it with epileptics.
They are?
They are. It's already a practice. So
you're not that scared. That goes on your head. This is going in your head, I believe.
The epileptics and the deaf also goes in your head.
Okay, on to the next news item. And this is also one that's near and dear to Surviving the Survivor because we had the great Dr. Avi Loeb, an amazing episode if you missed it. A House subcommittee.
Yeah, but you should listen to it. I'm not pushing it, but you should listen to it.
A House subcommittee is going to hold a hearing this week, which is really next week, but by the time they listen to this, it's this week, about UFOs. It's the first open congressional hearing about UFOs in more than 50 years. Congress has not held a public hearing on unidentified aerial phenomenon, UFOs, in over 50 years, a Democrat, Andre Carson, tweeted Tuesday morning. The House Intel Committee, though, is going to change all that next week. The Intelligence Committee is chaired by California Rep. Adam Schiff. I can't imagine that guy having any interest in UFOs, but apparently he's going to. He says that they're going to explore one of the great mysteries of our time and break the cycle of excessive secrecy and speculation with truth and transparency. 2 current Pentagon officials are going to testify. Do you think we're going to learn anything new this week about UFOs, Karm?
Before we go there, Joel, what is the plural of phenomenon?
Phenomena.
Good. you passed. Honestly,
Yeah.
we will not have like a revelation, a big headline, new revelation.
Do you think they're going to like post photos of actual aliens and the whole world will be shook this week?
No.
No? You don't think so? Do you think that Dr. Avi Loeb will watch this?
He will testify.
Think so?
Yeah.
Okay. On to the third line item for the news schmooze. And I tell you, this really, I just feel so bad for this guy that I'm so happy he finally has something good in his life. He's had a difficult life to this point. Troubled childhood, troubled career, troubled marriage, and now it's all paying off. Do you know who I'm talking about? Tom Brady has made his plans for life after football, whenever that is.
I knew that it was not a trouble.
According to multiple reports from a Fox Corporation investors call, the 7-time Super Bowl champion has agreed to a long-term deal with Fox Sports. He's going to serve as the network's lead NFL announcer after he retires from the sport, where he's going to call games alongside Kevin Burkhardt. Lachlan Murdoch, CEO of Fox Corporation, made the official announcement. What do you think Tom, who is like a 47-time NFL Pro Bowler, has 500 Super Bowl rings, is married to a supermodel? He's actually my neighbor, lives in Indian Creek in a $20 billion home. What do you think they're paying him after his football career for 10 years?
I tell you,
First of all, what do you think like the average reporter salary is in Indiana for a TV reporter?
40,000.
Something like that, maybe 80,000. What do you think they're paying Tom Brady, who's had such a troubled existence?
40 million.
For 10 years.
For 10 years?
Yeah, 10-year contract.
Like in a billion.
$375 million they're paying him.
For how long?
For 10 years. This is what we call white privilege. This is what we call excessive white privilege.
This is
so white, it's translucent privilege.
No, it is really insane how much.
I mean, does he need $375 million to call football games? I mean, it's crazy. I was covering a story for CBS locally. What do you think a 911 operator in Broward County makes a year?
40,000.
37,000. And they're the frontline defense for if you're getting a knife jabbed into your throat, they're the ones that are going to save you. $37,000 under extreme duress.
Are we going to do this
I'm not
every
far
session?
behind.
May I say something?
Yeah.
Are we going to do this every
We'll be
session?
right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
Emphasize the injustice of the world. We know
Injustice.
injustice. It's like I have one comment.
Yeah.
We know this.
Tom Brady.
It's terrible.
It's not your fault, Tom Brady. And I'm your neighbor. And if you want to donate any money to my
You know how
family-
you are his neighbor?
Yeah.
You know how in New York, like one block can be this way and the other one can
Yeah,
be
like
that way.
96th Street and
and
Lexus.
And 97th Street is hell.
Yeah, exactly. We'll
So
be right
that's how
back
you are neighbors.
with 3 questions for Grandma. But today there's only 2 questions because J-Mac was exhausted and slept through this.
Well, he got married.
He did get married. Today, by the way, is my son's coming up on his 3rd birthday. God bless him. I love that kid more than life itself. Right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
And we're back. I said that I thought I deleted 3 questions for Grandma. Your response was, it's not that important. These are my children. There's nothing more important.
Okay.
Question number 1. There's no J-Mac question today. He was sleeping. It's his birthday at school today. He's having a party. Got a lot of women going after him. He's tired. Question number 1. I deferred this directly to you. Is a woman allowed to marry a woman, and is a man allowed to marry a man? In Florida, there's a law called don't say gay. And if you were to bring this up in school, the teacher would be fired. But Carmela, you're not their teacher. So what's
No,
the answer?
the teacher would not be fired, just couldn't answer it.
Correct. Karm,
Well, you know what? Ask daddy and mommy.
that's your answer?
Yeah, because I don't know if you're going to raise them in a progressive way or a regressive way, a liberal, a conservative. I don't know what you will tell. If you were a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 6-year-old and 8-year-old, I would say to you, some people, yes, they can marry.
It's interesting. I wonder where they got this from. What do you think?
Who asked this question?
Vita, Aaliyah.
They know more about life than you.
By the way, we're going to Los Angeles for a nice, relaxing 48 hours, and Vita made a to-do list of what she needs to do. It was cute. On to the next one here. How is the sun a big star if it's actually made out of fire? Another smart question. This one's kind of for Dr. Avi Loeb, but your response, Karm?
How is it a big star if it's made of fire?
Well, how can something be fire and be a star, I think, is the question.
I think all the stars are fire.
Sort of think you're right. I'm not really sure, though.
I think so. Otherwise, you wouldn't see them. They would not project light.
I would have to defer that to either Dr. Avi Loeb or Matt Brode.
I would always use as a fallback answer that it's complicated.
Karm, we have done this entire show out of sequential order, and we're now waiting to do the actual interview. You excited to do this?
Yes.
Any parting words for our audience today?
Just hang in there, guys. I saw the news before. Inflation is going down a little.
Got to survive in a rough world.
Right.
Love you, America.